So everybody, welcome. Welcome to this. This is the first of which may be more than one live Q&A that is about the media and entertainment business and where it's going and where we are right now with all the madness and the craziness around us. So my goal here is several things. I just want to be available. I want to give you my thoughts and answer questions and perspectives, and maybe some support and during these crazy times like we all need. Obviously, nobody has the answers, most of all me, but together we will get through this, and there's going to be a tremendous amount of creativity that bursts through all of it, and I really believe that. So the goal here is really to provide all of that. I just want to mention at the beginning, and at the end I'll mention it too, I just published a new book, and this is not meant to be a promo for the book, but it's about the times we live in and some of the topics we're going to be talking about today. And I'm making it available to everybody for free. And so just drop me a line after this if you're interested in getting a copy, and I'll send it off to you. And my email is peter@creative.media. And it's called Viral Media Entertainment in this age, this age of the great pandemic. So it tries to cover some of the topics we'll talk about today. So what I did before this, in the registration, I sent out a call for certain questions that people had, and if they had specific questions. And what I want to do in this Q&A for the first one is really try to keep things meta, at a meta level. So I organized the questions in buckets that are more generalized buckets, so we don't get overly granular. And so as you sit back in your pajamas, like I am doing right now at our house, because we're all holed up as we should be, let's talk about some of the big issues. In the lower right-hand corner in the chat box, feel free to type in any questions you have as I go through things, because I don't want it to be just a monologue. I want it to be something that is open and interesting and not just a presentation. That's the goal. So with that, like I said, we will get a little bit more granular, but the high level is that we don't want to lose the forest from the trees here. There is so much, everybody's so raw about what we're going through, and this is truly a group experience. So to a certain extent, this is group therapy for people in the media and entertainment and tech world. We're coming together. It's a call to arms to all of us. And what can we do now that our business is where it is? Let's put aside the personal for a second as much as we can, but focus on media and entertainment and tech and where the business is today compared to where it was just before this crazy pandemic hit all of us. And then what does that mean for us, and maybe some clues of what we can do and where we can go from here and where the industry will go from here. So I'll give some of that kind of perspective. So one thing, a fundamental theme, of course, is that already pre-pandemic, we were an interconnected world. We live in a global, borderless society. Internet has democratized things. It has brought everybody into the fore. Everybody now can consume content, media and entertainment 24/7, virtually anywhere on the planet. And we can also be creators ourselves and inject our thoughts, for better or for worse, and we see a lot of worse these days too, for better or for worse, into this overall global conversation. So that was already something that was happening. Obviously, that was more from a creative standpoint, fascinating, from a consumer standpoint, fascinating. But the virus, as we've seen, has really shown us and demonstrated how connected we are in a way that we just wasn't top of mind, most likely for very few of us. We have never, of course, been in a society where the whole society has stopped. Global society has stopped at one point in time, literally stopped, where everybody's inside or should be inside. And that is something that we're all trying to wrap our heads around. And so, one of the things that we will see is that is going to be, I do believe that there will be a certain rewiring of our personal approaches, not only perhaps in family life, but also in our business lives and how we go about that, and how perhaps even some priorities. And priorities can affect, of course, this great business that we're in and how we play in it, what matters to us. So I think that it's true. Before I dig right in, it's important to just step back and kind of look at how we've already perhaps changed our perceptions of things in terms of a global society, which ain't going away anytime soon, because we have about half the planet now that's connected by the internet. That's going to change radically in the next 5 years. It will be virtually everybody on the planet will be connected by the internet. So we are this deeply connected world. Another constant, before I get more granular, is that we are individuals. We crave stories. We crave storytelling. That will never go away. Obviously, we crave it even now, perhaps more than ever, because we're stuck in our homes. We're looking for content. We look at it on all of our screens. We're trying to figure out what is interesting or what's important from a news standpoint. What's educational so we can learn? What is something that's more entertaining? What's motivating to us? What's inspiring to us? These are all opportunities for people who are storytellers. And so the constant of storytelling never goes away. That will only accelerate as we move forward, because we have all these new platforms to tell our stories. So yes, we have the written word. Yes, we have movies, television. We have all these new forms of short form entertainment, mobile driven content, which can be video, text, music. We have music. We have immersive. All live experiential, which is not going away, and I'll talk more about that. Yes, it's at a standstill, screeching halt, but it's not going away. I firmly believe that. So I'll talk about that too. But because of what we're going through, here's one of the things I firmly believe also. We are now dormant to a certain extent, but the creative process is not. The creative process is alive and well, and perhaps even more passion fueled and inspired than ever before. And so there's going to, I firmly believe that there will be an explosion of creativity and content, because we've seen in the past, even maybe with some of the own art or creatives that we've created over time, is that perhaps even in darker times, that's when some of the real meaningful art comes out, because it's passion filled. Sounds a little meta, I know, but I really believe that. So I think we will see this explosion of creativity. And here's something that's fascinating that I just saw, I think yesterday or 2 days ago. So the World Health Organization, seizing upon that and seizing upon this as an opportunity rather than a problem, had this call to arms where it sent out a note that was called a global call to creatives, reaching out to the entire creative community around the world, asking them in all their various forms of how they could send the messages of education, of what to do in these times, how to mitigate the risks, how to bring things down in terms of overall societal impact, to bring down the adverse impacts, but also to inspire, to motivate, to get people energized. And so I really urge you to look for what is called, so the WHO's, World Health Organization's global call to creatives. Search online, you'll find that, read the deck. It's pretty fascinating. Spread the word, and maybe you too will want to participate in this. So I think that's fascinating, just in terms of seizing this explosion of creativity that's pent up, ready to go, needs an outlet. One of the reasons why I'm doing this is because, okay, I'm looking for ways to reach out and hopefully help a little bit. And we all are doing that. And then another thing in terms of the explosion of creativity and content, by the way, I'm wearing this in solidarity to our brothers and sisters out in New York City who are going through the madness. So to all of you who are out there, this is for you. One more thing, by the way, before I move on. There's clearly a real hunger for this kind of a discussion. And I'm not saying this is the perfect forum, but it's an attempt to start. The demand for, there are a number of you in this webinar, and I'm grateful for that. coming from the United States, the UK, France, South Korea, Poland, Israel, Canada. Those are some of the countries that are now represented by you, who's here. So thank you for coming, and feel free to reach out to me. So time for great experimentation. I mentioned the WHO. Let's look at some specific examples of how people have seized the moment with great creativity. Some are profound, some are a little bit absurd, but all very interesting. So I don't know how many of you know about TikTok, but I'm sure most of you do now. If you have kids, for sure you know about TikTok. TikTok started off as being it came from Musical.ly, which was the lip syncing app that was very big in the United States for Gens Y and Z about 4 years ago. And then a Chinese company, ByteDance, bought that, and so it became TikTok. So TikTok started off as a music-focused app, but it has now become the center of the universe for kids, for Gens Y and Gen Z in terms of social apps. So TikTok is not just for music anymore. Now it's mini stories, little whatever the kids want it to be, jokes, things like that. If you remember Vine from a couple of years ago, it's kind of the new Vine, but it's really taken hold. So one of the interesting things I saw, and send me your stories of what you see out there, for TikTok, they're very absurd, but one really cute video was one where there was a hamster was washing its hands and going through all this the motions of how to stay safe and sane during coronavirus. And it was fascinating because it was effective. That was probably more effective, that little hamster, and going through that in a very comedic kind of way. It's probably more effective to young people than a lot of the more formal, professional sorts of things out there. So I think that's just something to keep in mind as we create content. Let's not dismiss some of this user-generated content that's out there, because there's this font of creativity that's happening right now. Musicians. Here's another example. So very inspirational. Obviously for musicians, like for all of us, it's a very, very tough time. Touring has completely stopped. So that income is gone. And how long, we don't know, but it's gone. So what, and like all of us, artists who are used to engaging with their audiences out of the home, what can they do now? Well, we see, and I'm seeing this explosion of live streaming right now, where direct artists to fans, and that can be one-to-one, it can be one-to-many. There are virtual concerts that are going on right now that serve multiple purposes. It serves the purpose of just engagement. It serves the purpose of having purpose, just getting your music and art out there. It serves the purpose of commerce. So fans now can sign up and they can give money to their favorite artists to help support them in these crazy times. Or there can be benefits that are happening. And as an example, this last weekend, my kids and I were watching this live DJ benefit on Beatport, and it was fascinating. 33 hours of some of the world's best DJs, many of them back to back to back to back, spinning like I am here from their homes, from their home offices, from their home sound stages. And over $200,000 was collected in that benefit. So musicians, you should experiment and try this. And there are many different platforms to do that. There's Twitch is probably the most obvious one, but there's also a company called Bulldog Digital Media as an example, Bulldog DM. And just check out some of the tools that these services have for musicians to allow you to connect directly. They can be very effective, and it's a great time to do that because everybody's hungry for content. Clearly, all of us or many of us are using Zoom and other sorts of tools out there to continue to try to be as effective as possible. And we are learning now that can be more effective than many of us thought. So we're engaging in this kind of behavior that for many wasn't comfortable, and it's going to be a new comfort level. I think that these kind of changes in terms of communication and more remote like this will be accelerated because of what we're going through. And of course, education. We're using Zoom and we're using other live platforms like this to be able to have our kids and anybody to continue to receive an education, learn. So my high school Junior is home at school, online learning as we speak. My daughter, who goes to USC, has been out of USC now for 3 weeks, and they've been doing virtual learning, and the rest of the school year will be that way, like it is for all of you, probably. For those of you who have kids, this is the new normal. When it changes, we don't know, but it may be a long time. We just don't know, so we do the best we can, and these tools really help. Doctors and patients, of course, with telemedicine, that's an obvious one. I mean, thankfully, there's still that. And then, of course, then there's FaceTime and the other sorts of, let's not forget about the need for the personal connection. So I'll give you just a couple brief anecdotes. So my mother, my mother is in a retirement community. I can't visit her. I can't bring her groceries. Can't do that. She's 84, almost 85, not the most sophisticated when it comes to technology, but FaceTime has been a godsend. Haven't been able to see her for 2 weeks, but the emotional support that comes from that, so we can just see each other's faces, means a lot. Like, thankfully, we have FaceTime, Skype video, all other kinds of things at our disposal very easily. Then, here's just another example. Staying connected with our friends, for other people for emotional support. One thing I implemented, tells you a lot about me, is virtual happy hours. So I'm starting to do that every couple of days with different friends, and we set up our phones, our MacBooks, whatever they may be, and we pour ourselves a cocktail and talk about the day, talk about creativity, talk about where we will go from here. So anyhow, just an idea. So anyhow, I want to get back to some of the more granular things. One of the things that will result from that, I already mentioned global and interconnected world. Storytelling, I absolutely believe, will become more global faster as a result of what we're all going through together. This is a moment in time. It was already going that way, but things will accelerate. I've already talked about the fact that a little over 50% of the world is connected right now via the internet, and it will be close to 100%. Shockingly, it's projected in about 5 years. Now, think about what that means to the diversity of stories that will be told, what that means for the new voices that will be heard. These are going to be voices from places that never had a chance before. So the explosion of creativity that will come from that is pretty incredible. And automation, artificial intelligence as an example, will help accelerate that in interesting ways. So there's a company I've written about before, if some of you read my stuff, called Synthesia. And one of the promises of Synthesia is that you literally pump in what I'm saying right now, and AI instantaneously brings back and maneuvers my mouth so it looks like I'm speaking in Portuguese or Spanish or French or whatever it may be. And so imagine in a world where you have that kind of technology going for you, and there's no longer a need for subtitling, it just is. That is coming, and that's going to accelerate global diversity of storytelling on all the major platforms like Netflix, but also just generally when it comes to social media and short form video, everything that we can think about. So I think that's pretty fascinating. Obviously, in this era of the Me Too era, that's a very big change in the overall media and entertainment business. With Harvey Weinstein going to jail, the real message being sent there about 23 years, that has already led in the last couple of years to new faces that are coming to power in the media and entertainment business, which means different stories are told. That's a major development, a fascinating development, and it goes to the diversity of storytelling that's going to be out, that is coming and that is happening. And with all the platforms out there, there's more of an opportunity for all these voices to be heard and to find the voices that speak to you and motivate you or whatever it may be. So I think that's fascinating, and that's not changing. So now I'm going to dig even deeper, and I'm going to pause for a second. And does anybody, if anybody has a question, remember in the chat box to the right of your screen, you can put in and chat in a question, and I will try to get to as many as possible. But now I'm going to get into some of the topics that I've organized based on the questions I've received. And so I'm not going to get overly granular, but I'm going to I'm going to get into, I am addressing the questions that I received, but I also am trying to do it in a way that speaks to everybody. I'll talk about all the different media and entertainment industry segments. So the pandemic has certainly not been kind to many segments in the media and entertainment business. I mean, we know that. Out-of-home entertainment in particular has been slammed. And that means theatrical motion picture business, obviously, live entertainment, live concerts, live festivals. Coachella was starting in about 2 weeks. It won't now, obviously. Experiential entertainment. I've written a lot about different companies who are doing amazing things like Cages down in, which is a production, a multimedia production, experiential entertainment to the max. One of the most incredible things I found. Smaller company behind it. They were killing it in Los Angeles. Now they are on this indefinite hiatus. But those stories, those experiences will continue to proliferate once we go back out into the world, which we absolutely will. But the out-of-home entertainment market has been slammed. But what's going to happen there is that, and I write about this a lot, there's in this increasingly digital, virtual age that we live in, that we're increasingly heads down. What we're going through is kind of a wake-up call to a certain extent. I think, if you don't mind me waxing a little bit philosophical, I think it's a little bit of a wake-up call that there's a world around us, and get your heads up and with your loved ones and with your friends, and go out and experience once we have the opportunity to do that. But right now we have different kinds of experiences, but together. Once things open up, this human need to interact, which we're all craving right now, and we're all seeing it, that will never go away. It will never go away. Yes, there may be certain things that we do differently. Undoubtedly, there will be changes made. But live events, experiential entertainment, major music festivals, theatrical motion picture business, and I'll go into that in more detail too, that will continue on. That is not killed, albeit in theatrical motion picture business, I think that it will be in a long-term different form, which it was already going to, but that will accelerate. But I absolutely believe, especially when you talk about young people today, the need to, the reason why festivals are growing so quickly and so rapidly, and why Coachella was such a, the center of the universe for so many people, is because there's this need for people to be out and rubbing shoulders together, having real physical human contact. Once we're able to do that again, we will get out there, and that segment will absolutely grow. That's why you've seen like Live Nation, their stock has been battered in the past few weeks. But last I checked a couple days ago, I have no idea what the market's doing today. It was rising up again, and investors like Mark Cuban, who is not infallible, nonetheless invested significant amounts into Live Nation a couple of weeks ago because they believe, there are strong believers out there, and I'm one of them. During this massive reset of what we're going through, what are our roles going to be? I've been asked that a lot by different people. What are the roles that we will have going forward? Will they stay? Will they change? And how can we best position ourselves right now for this altered world, which will be permanently altered in certain ways that we can't even fathom? I think it will be more normal in many ways that people don't even fathom. But certain things will change. Certainly, one of the things that I really strongly advocate is reading and studying what others are doing, really digest different stories of innovation that are happening in and around our business and in around just engagement and community right now. So I try to do as much as I can that way, but by getting thoughts, different perspectives that help shape my perspectives. Experiment and innovate. Do things that aren't natural to you, but try them. So you're a creator, you're a producer, you're a filmmaker, you're somebody like that, you're stuck at home. Well, use one of these tools, live interactive, to work with your co-creators, and maybe you do some remote creation together. There are tools to do that. Or try a different form of medium. Try short form video and experiment. may not lead to anything, but you will learn something from that. I did my own experimentation. I was losing my mind, just kind of, being inside all the time. And so what I do when I'm that way, after I try to take care of family first, or they take care of me, is that I try to write. So in a frenzy of activity, I created this book, and that's the book I mentioned. And like I said, it's available to you if you want it. And it was cathartic in many ways, but hopefully helpful in many ways. But it was an experiment because I put it together fast. There may be certain typos in it, but these are the kinds of things that I wanted to get out there. Hopefully it's helpful. And I may do something new because of it. I may add a new chapter every month or every week or every day. I don't know. But there are no rules anymore. And so get out there, experiment. With this world that we have, the multi-platform world with all these different ways to engage, which you still can use today, get out there and try it. You have to. That's the way you're going to be most flexible, most useful, most ready to be able to do well as the world goes forward in whatever form it does. You got to be flexible as part of that. And being proactive, that goes with everything I was saying. Proactivity is key. It's very easy for us to, and I know, sit back and watch my favorite news channels and over and over and over again, but come up with ideas for your business. Think about it. It's a great time to strategize about where you want to take your business in the first place. It's a great time to strategize with your clients or for your clients. And it's a great time to flesh out some of your stories. Okay, again, I'll pause for a second. Now let's talk about specific sectors of the media and entertainment business. First, let's talk about the sectors that have strangely profited, and are doing extremely well, especially well now, because we're at home and we're hungry for escape, experiences, stories. And that's the in-home entertainment segment, of course. So the obvious one is the streaming services like Netflix. Going into this coronavirus age, we were already talking, and I wrote a lot about it, that we were in these great streaming wars with Netflix, and then Disney came online end of last year. Apple came online. Amazon's already been in the game for a long time. HBO Max is coming out shortly. NBC Universal's Peacock is coming out. So all of these services are now fighting for mind share and for our eyeballs. A couple more to mention. Those are just the subscription video on demand services. But as we all know, there's now the advertising video on demand services like Pluto TV that was swallowed up by Viacom for, I think it was about $350 million a year ago. And then in a frenzy of activity early this year, we had Comcast buying Xumo for $100 million. And even during the pandemic, this was shocking to me, Fox closed a deal during these crazy times when deals never happen, usually when there's this kind of disruption, to buy Tubi, another AVOD, for $440 million. So you have all these companies that are vying for our eyeballs. That was the world before. Still is, but for them, this is a good time, strangely, because we have more time to check them out. We may have more time and willingness to check them out. Now, we're squeezed in the pocketbook. There's a lot of economic pain out there. So after we get through our free trials, then we're going to have to pick and choose which ones matter to us. But at least from the beginning, to get mind share, to open us up to those possibilities, now is a good time for them. Netflix, for sure, as we all know, is doing really well right now in terms of volume, just pure volume. One of the things that's going to happen, though, and you producers know this, because production has come to a standstill in Hollywood, after we burn out all the shows that we want to see, the freshness quotient is going to go way down. And so that's going to be a real problem that all the major streamers are going to have to contend with because of the large-scale productions. That's going to be an issue. Then there's a new form I want to mention because it's so timely. Those are the major streamers. I'm sure you've heard a lot about Jeffrey Katzenberg's and Meg Whitman's Quibi, which is the new mobile-driven Gen Z, Gen Y focused Netflix, essentially. It's premium content, high quality Hollywood style production values. It launches at long last next Monday, April 6th. So I have to mention Quibi. So Quibi is trying to compete here, and it has its thesis that nobody else is in the mobile first game when it comes to premium, expensively produced content. And Quibi, every show is original, remember. There's nothing, there's no Friends it's bringing in, there's no Office that it's bringing in. Every show is original. And some of that content is costs, the expense is $120,000 to $125,000 per second. These are economics that didn't even come close to penciling out to mobile first premium services that predated Quibi. So like Verizon's Go 90 never made it, and the budgets were nothing like that on the content side. But with Quibi, it's a different kind of ballgame. Nobody's ever gone to scale like this before. Katzenberg was able to raise $1.6, $1.7 billion to fund this thing, and all of the major Hollywood studios are behind it, and big name Hollywood talent is creating the content. Bottom line, it's gonna be interesting to see, and there are a lot of skeptics out there whether Quibi will make it, but it's a grand experiment, and I applaud that. I applaud the fact that it's a grand experiment, swinging for the fences, and if Jeffrey Katzenberg and all that money and the power behind it can't make this kind of opportunity happen, then I don't think anybody really can. And so Quibi now has, after its missteps on the advertising side, like during the Super Bowl, et cetera, has a chance now to perhaps break out in a way because we have more time. So that's a little bit on the video side. On television, let's talk about television. Now, when it comes to television, what's the difference between really television programming and movies now? Because so much of it is done in our homes. That's just a more philosophical question, that it's all television, I guess. But let's talk about linear television, and that means the broadcasters, that means the cable TV networks like ESPN and those. We already were going through this age where the cord cutting, of course, you all know about cord cutting, where we were trying to escape these pricey, bloated cable and satellite packages with the promise of being able to pick and choose the packages we wanted for a fraction of the price. That's cord cutting. That was already accelerating. That's a phenomenon that's been going on for years and has sped up. So we are in a streaming first world. What this will do, the pandemic is certainly going to, I believe, accelerate cord cutting and cord nevering. Cord nevering is when certain audiences just never sign up for those packages in the first place because they were digital natives already. They never signed up because they already had what they wanted, just streaming to them. So that's cord nevers. So I think that one of the forces that's going to happen during this pandemic or as a result of it is that cord cutting, as people are squeezed in the pocketbook and are looking for alternatives and find alternatives that will satisfy them, that will only accelerate, and that hurts the linear TV broadcasters. Remember, you can get much of your live local news now via apps that you can stream from your Roku or Apple TV. You can get your CNN or the other one, if that's your desire. You can get that now for just the CNN app on my Apple TV. I don't need to have my cable provider or DirecTV. I don't need to have it. So this is all going to speed up, and it's a real challenge. ESPN, as we all know, what happens to ESPN now? They have no live sports to be able to cover. That's a massive problem for Disney right now. So those are some of the themes. Social video, so more like mobile driven. Obviously, we're clutching our phones in our homes, and I see my kids, my 20-year-old, my 17-year-old, and what their behavior is like when it comes to phones. And TikTok, as I mentioned, is a big one. And then Quibi, I mentioned. So there's an opportunity there. So there should be more demand for mobile-driven content because we're stuck and we're looking and we're hungry. I think that's a beneficiary. And then there's new services that are coming up. So there's a new company called Snibble that's based out of Canada that's coming in with kind of the anti-Quibi. That's the way they position themselves. So Snibble is going to be launching in a world that probably is a good world for it because it's reaching a Gen Y, Gen Z audience with new way to engage, with video content that speaks to them and to share it and be very social. So that's video. Music. So music, what happens in this music world? I already talked about live music. Live music business, which is about $30 billion in 2022, 2023, that's the projection. Dead now. But it will come back in a very big way. I have no doubt about that, as I said. So I'm extremely bullish long term, not minimizing the pain though. But the recorded music business, which was already streaming led and which has been growing double digits for the last several years because of streaming, I see that as business as usual in a sense. That, and in fact, maybe a beneficiary these times where we're looking for escape and inspiration and soul in our lives and background while we're working on books or creations or whatever it may be. So I think for the recorded music business, which reached about $20 billion this year and is expected to reach about $45 billion in 10 years, according to Goldman Sachs, I don't think that that trajectory changes at all. And in fact, in the short term, I believe that recorded music the demand for it and the appetite may actually increase a little bit. What about games and esports, in-home entertainment? I don't have any statistics for this, but I can't imagine it being otherwise, that the games business, esports business, which is already $1 billion plus, by the way, if you don't know, that is now benefiting. Those segments are benefiting from our stay-at-home ways as our kids and some of us, I'm not a gamer, but some of us are increasingly looking for alternatives from an entertainment engagement standpoint. And games and cloud-based gaming is accelerating all of this, and mobile gaming, those trends were already happening. Well, there may be a little bit of a kickstart even more now because of what's happening right now. And then with the coming wave of 5G, which will continue on, obviously that will accelerate things further when it comes to the esports and games market. So that segment will be strong, healthy. Immersive entertainment, VR driven, AR driven, mixed reality driven. I gotta think that that segment also is benefiting during these times for those who have those kind of headsets, the hardware in their homes. But there's other opportunities they can get for AR, et cetera, online. So I believe that there's more consumption of that happening. Just anecdotally, I feel that's the case. So I think the immersive, there might be even more focus on it now, more of a willingness to really try and take yourself away in a full-fledged way through being fully immersed by VR as an example. So here's a tantalizing example of how VR is going to be used. I have no doubt. And this may actually speed up the opportunity, and this may be long-term. There are several companies that are in the VR travel base, immersive travel. Obviously, you know, the travel industry is just paralyzed right now, and it's tragic. There will be a segment of consumers who will not feel comfortable traveling to far lands for quite some time, some, if ever, most likely. And for those who are elderly or incapacitated in some way, just generally, VR immersive travel offered an opportunity to experience travel without physical distance. But VR works in such a way that it's actually a physiological impact. It's not just visual. So if VR works right, you can be traveling to the Great Wall, and you feel like your mind feels like it's there. So I think virtual travel is going to be something really interesting. There's a lot of mental health issues all the time, but particularly I think there will be a lot now, just anecdotally as we hear, of course, and there's a lot of pain and suffering going on there. So perhaps immersive therapies can come in, and I think there will be an acceleration of immersive therapies where you get a chance to escape, to get some peace, to get some solitude. And I think that's an interesting sort of example. So some of the main, and then we'll talk out of home. I think that some of the, those are the major segments as I see them. Content freshness is going to be a theme that is recurring throughout this whole pandemic process. Network capacity issues, we've already heard of and probably experienced it ourselves, where our movies, television have been throttled down because of networks that are over taxed right now. And for those who don't have good broadband, that's a real issue. But that's something that all these Facebook and Netflix and others are making YouTube have throttled down. They've had to because of their own internal issues, so they got to beef that up. But that's an issue that is kind of the great unknown as we look at just the size and scale of all this. And then there's cash-strapped consumers who are looking for out of work. Futures may be challenged for a long time, and for some, for much longer than that. New opportunities will present themselves. I'm an optimist. I think there's so much opportunity out there, but there will be short-term pain and long-term pain for many, and that is going to influence their entertainment choices. So that's something that comes back into, like during the streaming wars, how does somebody break out? Beyond free trials, where do they go? All these kinds of things. It may be a chance for certain businesses to change their business models to address the fact and be a little bit more giving about what they do. So rather than subscriptions, perhaps, maybe they make a free to pay sort of model where, at least for a period of time, or discounted subscriptions, but maybe even free for a certain period of time so that people try it and aren't so strapped. And it might be a really smart thing to do in so many different kinds of ways. So anyhow, that's in-home and some themes. On the out-of-home entertainment, that market that has been harmed so badly, let's talk about the theatrical motion picture market. We already know that streaming has been a game changer, and that has led to a world where our local multiplexes have become the homes of the Avengers and the sequels and all the mega movies that are the tentpole movies, the franchise, the comic book driven movies, Star Wars. The smaller independent films have been squeezed out of movie theaters for the most part. Those producers have had to find their way into the streamers themselves, where frequently they try to battle for our attention just by having a thumbnail visual that we quickly scroll through and say, okay, that looks interesting. So those are challenges for the producers, but also for the theatrical motion picture market. It was already faced with that. And where it was so easy for people to stay at home and watch movies. So the challenge for the theatrical motion picture market going into this year was, how do we differentiate? How do we create an experience that cannot be replicated at home? Well, certainly that needs to be accelerated, because there is going to be a segment of the market that doesn't come back into theatrical motion pictures, at least as they are today. Theatrical motion picture market isn't dead. I absolutely believe in the out-of-home motion picture opportunity and in that form of communal engagement. As an example, if you watch a movie like Jordan Peele's Get Out, it's a lot more fun to watch it when you're in a crowd of other people who are scared at the same time that you're scared or cause you to get scared. You know, there are things, there are communal, that's what I talk about, like communal storytelling is important. So the theatrical motion picture market isn't going away, but it will evolve. And how they will evolve, not just leather seats, not just sushi, it's going to become more experiential entertainment. So experiential, where it's a night, it's an event. You don't just go to a movie, get your popcorn, go in and passively watch it. Now there's going to be more experiential, where you come, there's a pre-show, there's perhaps a live kind of show around it before there's an augmented kind of actual screening of the film itself, and then maybe a post-show, and maybe there's the restaurant beforehand. Maybe it all comes together in a 360-degree way. Well, check out Disney and a new partnership they just did with Secret Cinema. Check it out, Disney Secret Cinema. That's an example that points the way to what I'm talking about. I also think that I mentioned this Cages by Wolf and the Wonder Show. Just look that up, Cages, Wolf, Wonder Show, LA. It's not cinema, but it's not theater. It's a little bit of everything that comes into play. That points the way. Those are experiences that point the way. Certainly there's a lot of talk, and I'm sure you're all following it closely, about theatrical windows closing now. So now you've had Universal release The Invisible Man as an example, day and date. So the exact same date that new movie, that Blumhouse film, was coming out in theaters, but couldn't. It was released at home for $19.99, I believe that was the price for a one-time viewing for $19.99. Obviously, this whole windowing issue is something that the studios have wanted to try for quite some time, but the distributors or the theatrical motion picture houses and those companies were violently opposed to because of the threat to their business was the perception. But now in a world where theatricals closed down, the opportunity was seized by the studios to release these films directly into the home, and that is something that was fought so hard in the Hollywood business all these years. Now that genie is out of the bottle. And understandably from the studio side, they have this product that they spent all this money on that's fresh now. You're either going to shelve it, hope for a better day, or you put it out there now and you try to monetize as best you can. I understand that. And so that's happening. Disney also released, and several other studios I think will soon do that. Well, they'll release their motion pictures in the home for a premium price at a time that they can't release them in theaters. That's a new reality, and parts of that are not going to go away. Absolutely. A lot of metrics will be taken by the studios during this time to see how successful that has been. But as they look at those metrics, let's not forget, it's an artificial sample too, because there's no competitive out-of-home entertainment market. So it's just purely in-home or not at all. It's not in-home and out-of-home, and they're together coexisting, and then you take the data that way. That's not happening. So whatever information comes back, but it will be interesting to see how many dollars are generated, total dollars. And I think the numbers may surprise us. I think the numbers may be higher than we may think in terms of the kind of money that can be generated out of home. So that's the theatrical window market or theatrical market. Live events, concerts, festivals, I've talked about that quite a lot, so I'm not going to touch upon that anymore, but it's a segment that's near and dear to me. I really, I live it. It's hard to be getting all these cancellations of festivals and concerts that we paid tickets for, paid dollars for to attend because they're annual rites of passage for me and my family and friends, but obviously a small price to pay for us, but a massive price to pay for all these businesses and all the entire ecosystem and the artists around them. It will come back. So what does this mean? This is another category of questions that I received. What does it mean more specifically for creators and producers out there? What's happening in the market or what's happening in the world right now? Well, certainly one thing, out-of-home production has stopped, yes. But I know from a lot of conversations I've had that there's a lot of writing going on in homes right now. So there's a lot of writing. And so that will lead to this burst of creativity that I've talked about. In-home experimentation has not stopped and is accelerating. TikTok, the musicians doing what they're doing, trying things that aren't comfortable, but that's how you learn. Money, of course, we all gotta live. Money's on the sidelines for now. But let's not forget, there are a lot of companies in the media and entertainment business and in the world in general that are making a lot of money right now, that are benefiting right now. So Netflix and Amazon, they're killing it. They're getting more subscriptions. Amazon's getting us to deliver as well as watch more Amazon Prime Video. Brands still need to reach an audience, and there are a lot of brands that are doing extremely well. A lot of consumer packaged goods are doing very well. Have you gone to your local grocery store lately? Toilet paper lines? Missing toilet paper? It's a great dilemma here in the US. We have family that's outside the US and they scratch their heads. They're like, what's this toilet paper thing that happens in the US? We don't get it. And that's Italy. That's Italy that's going through the pain that they're having and they can't leave anywhere. So in any event, there are a lot of companies that are doing very well. They will continue to advertise. They will continue to spend the money once they have an opportunity to do that. So it's not like production has stopped, but once it opens up again, there'll be a flood of capital that's coming in to fuel that need for fresh content, for fresh marketing. Media tech startups, this is another category that I was asked about. And I've been there. I've built and run and sold several different media tech companies. I've had to go through raising capital. I've had a company that almost had the plug pulled on it, and thankfully we had a nice result with it. So I know. And I've been through M&A through crazy times too. Like not like this, but in 2008, I was going through M&A. So I know how the markets react in the venture capital side. So there's gonna be a scramble for investment right now by all you young companies, media and entertainment tech companies. And some of you won't make it. And it's not because you're not deserving of not making it. It's just because the money is drying up right now. Right now, venture capitalists are taking their money and they're gonna focus first and massively on the companies that are already in their portfolio and that they believe needs the help. So it's a cash preservation time like it is for all of us. It's cash preservation from the venture capitalists. The venture capital markets are going to be beyond challenging right now. For any of those companies who are fortunate to get any new financing, you can expect, of course, significantly lower valuations, and that's just the reality. Can't be helped. It's timing in the marketplace, and if you're fortunate to get financing, take it to fight another day. M&A. So M&A does not like the passage of time, and M&A, so buying and selling of companies, massive deal making. Time is never a good friend, the passage of time. The longer a deal takes, the more chance it has to be disrupted and go off the rails. Same thing during disruptive times, of course. And especially a black swan event like this, there's been a deal that have been on the table, even those that have been close to being signed, many of those are gonna be off the table. And any M&A that gets done is likely to be, most of them likely will be at a discount. Just because there's more leverage. You either have no deal right now because the company buying is trying to conserve cash, or you get the deal done for a lesser amount, and that's just that's the reality. So I'm going to really quickly touch upon a few things because our time is getting short, and I know from a questioning standpoint, hopefully I'm addressing some of it. But this is my advice. This is my personal advice to all of you out there that I try to take to heart myself. Take care of of course, we have to take care of the basics first, which means the people around you and yourself, of course, you got to take care of that. All of that goes without saying. Once you get past that and you're looking for to try to get back to business as usual as best you can in this way that we are with hats on and webcams and this and that, really seek inspiration and motivation. And you'll find that in all kinds of places. You'll find great resources out there, but just be proactive and find them. Get different perspectives out there. Get those that are very difficult for you to accept, that challenge you. Because that will also mold your thinking and may cause you to think, maybe I can do this. Maybe things won't be as bad. Maybe things will actually lead to new opportunities that are even better and bolder and can be really interesting, because there are a lot of them out there. I would say push yourself into exploring new forms of storytelling and really think about it from a 360-degree standpoint. What I mean by that is, let's say you create the kernel of a story or a character. Put it in the center of your universe. Maybe start small by a short little video story or something like that. See what kind of traction you can measure the data, even at home, to see like what kind of reaction people are having to it. And ultimately, once the capital is more available, those elements that are successful are achieving traction can get more money to it, can upstream is what I call it, go to other platforms as well, whether it's motion pictures, television. I know that's a stretch, but ultimately I see this continuum where you have mobile experimentation, cost effective, that fuels more money that's being pumped in for shorter form video that takes more capital to produce. The successful ones there are going to graduate on to more conventional platforms like television, motion picture, then go on to out-of-home entertainment, live experiential, perhaps immersive, and you have this continuing like 360-degree sort of storytelling. Disney is a great example of what they do for 360-degree storytelling. Look at Star Wars. Luke and Darth are at the center of the universe, and they've infiltrated every part of our galaxies. In-home, out-of-home, merchandise, virtual, everything. That's what I'm talking about. Check out a small little company called Yarn that's doing really interesting things there from a content perspective to experiment with text-based subscriptions to a young female audience and monetizing it well. It takes those characters and has already sold those. It was based on text for just mobile smartphones, sold them to television, and now has television shows that are in development, and the company's getting much more from an economic standpoint because of it. Then there's network storytelling. I know Keenan Clark is out there, so Keenan, thanks for all your notes there. And there were a lot of questions you asked. But network storytelling, which creates a link between stories. So I can create a story, then you can kind of grab onto it and extend the story further. And so network storytelling, where we all participate in it to drive an overall narrative forward in some way, with all the tools we have at our disposal, network storytelling is going to be very interesting right now. And so I urge us, including myself, to explore that in more detail. Certainly live streaming and interaction is now just here to stay in a way that it wasn't before. Telemedicine. Telemedicine was already taking up, but not like this, out of necessity. Education, everybody's had to have a crash course, so to speak, in this. Live streaming, like we're doing here, to interact that way. Our teams, family members who we can't see, like my mother, that's here to stay. Marketing, experiential marketing, humanizing brands will continue to go on once that money can be pumped into that experience, because that's part of 360 degrees. Not just all the virtual stuff, it's also tying it into the real world because of what I talked about, this real social need to get out there into the real world and rub shoulders. Well, the brands going into this pandemic, we're pumping a lot more money into that space because they recognize that kind of real world engagement with their brand is more powerful than the virtual. And so that will continue. And then ultimately, I want to just here's the thing. Right now, the power of mobile and smartphones and ubiquitous online access and social and being able to interact with people gives a chance to mobilize like never before. How powerful is that? So getting back to that example of Beatport over the weekend, we're watching these DJs doing this benefit live streaming to us, which was really cool via YouTube. And then at the same time, right then and there, while the passion's there in our minds, we can give $5, $10, $20 and move the world, move the message forward. Go to the, again, World Health Organization, all the kinds of things that they're asking for from a creative standpoint. It has to do with mobilizing to educating, but there's an opportunity to send personalized messages of inspiration right now to move us. So I think that all of these kind of tools, it is a terrible, horrible time right now, horrible tragedy, unfathomable. We have no idea where this leads us, but there's also great hope that we see when the Italians stand up out on their balconies and sing songs, and when we have DJs who aren't looking for anything other than to benefit and help people feel better and be bigger than themselves. So this is the world that we live in. Hopefully some breadcrumbs about where the segment is going and where the world will go post-pandemic. And remember, my book is available to you for free. Just literally finished it 2 days ago, so it's fresh. I'll send it to you in PDF. You can just send me a request at Peter at creatv.media, creatv.media. And also send me your thoughts, guys, about whether this was useful for you or whether this was not useful for you. You know, what you liked, what you didn't like, and be candid about it. And let me know if you want to do this more. Maybe yes, maybe no, but let me know if this is something that we should do more than one time, maybe on a recurring basis every now and then. I really would appreciate that. And for all of you out there, keep creating, keep keeping on, keep the hope, stay inside, think about those that are worse off than yourselves and ourselves, and let's do what we can, and wish you the best.